in your life, what do you want to create? Have you created that image, that painting of what you see your life to be? If you haven't, you're missing out on opportunities. You're leaving things on the table. And when you leave things on the table, not only do you do a disservice to the people that you say you care about, you do a disservice to yourself. You're telling yourself that the things that you have planned don't matter. The things that are about you, they don't matter. And when it comes time for you to show up and represent yourself to the world, then you've left everything about you on the table. And why does that matter? Because you are the only you. And if you don't take care of yourself and show up for yourself and produce, then you're screwed. You've given up on yourself and everyone that looks up to you and values you. And if you got kids, shame on you. Because you've set the example for them that they can be losers. And I can guarantee you, straight up and down, left and right, 100% that you don't want your kid to grow up and be a loser. So what is it that you've created? What are the definition and how defined is that of what you want your life to be? And if you can't tell me what exactly it is, then you have work to do. I want to welcome you to the Man Up and Own It podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Reeves, and we are here to help men find experiences and understand the things that they can do to overcome the difficulties in their life. And I have a special guest here today that not only puts the stranglehold on finances, but he makes you suffer in the chokehold, my man, Wulf.
Thanks for that intro, man. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that, and I'm super honored to be here. Very excited to have this conversation, man. I know we've been connected on Instagram for quite some time, so I think this is going to be a really good conversation to be had.
I've been watching you, and I like to observe and see what people are actually about, because I believe that if you allow people to show you who they are and you take them serious, you can get a good idea of what they're actually capable of and who they actually are. Absolutely. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself so the rest of the world can hear you?
Yeah, man. So that question, I can answer it in a million ways. So I think what I'm going to settle for, or the type of answer I'm going to give, is I am just a guy who came from another country in search for a better opportunity. I was born and raised in Spain, Barcelona, until I was like 16, which that's a whole nother story. I had all these different development arcs from different type of personalities and characters that I became. And then I came to the United States with the dream, or I guess the aspiration to be someone worth following and somebody that I was proud of.
Absolutely.
You know, so... yeah, so that's me, and I'm the infinite banker. That's why I like to call myself, and what some people might call me as well. I like to think that I know what I'm doing with infinite banking, and my experience and my track record kind of speaks for itself. I am a huge Jiu-Jitsu fan, and I love to be in the mats rolling with other outstanding men to just obviously prove my worth and just get very active. And other than that, man, I'm a huge proponent on men's mental health. That's why being on this podcast is super important. I think it's about the conversations to be had. So, yeah, man, that's me in a nutshell.
So what do you get out of being strangled?
So, great question, man. I was on a panel, mental health panel, a few days ago at the Formerly Intoxicated tour, and one of the questions was, how do you combat mental health? How do you even combat addiction? And one of the number one things that I said was Jiu-Jitsu. And the reason why is because when you are in a rear naked choke, when you're in a triangle choke, head and arm type of whatever type of choke you're in, I promise you are not thinking about anything else. Yep. Anything else other than just trying to figure out how to get out of there, or try to see if you can maneuver in a different position, or how close you are from the clock to be able to finish the round so you don't tap. And trust me, it's been such an amazing journey, dude. So to answer that question, man, what do you get out of getting choked out? First of all, it humbles you. Yep. And second of all, it helps you battle those demons that you might not be able to battle in a different situation.
All right. It's an interesting point that you make of battling the demons.
Yes.
Now, do you use those experiences when you're in that predicament with your everyday life? Do you relate those moments to like maybe a financial issue?
Yeah, man. So that's a good question, because yes, I think in life there's a lot of different situations that you might get in that might feel like a choke. Yep. Right? Whether specifically financial, as entrepreneurs, we are in a position where nothing is guaranteed, and all the work that we're doing, it won't necessarily equate to dollars. Right. Right. There's a period of time that you might be working for a long time and you might not get paid anything. And that's when you're in that choke. Right. That's when, whoever you're wrestling against or whoever you're rolling with already got you in the rear naked choke, and you're there just trying to fish for the hands and try to like get your back to the mat. So that's kind of how I related. It's like, how long can you last? How much better can you maneuver yourself to be able to get your back to the mat so you can escape that choke? And it relates really well to entrepreneurship as well too, because all it is just surviving until the next second.
Right. It's like putting yourself in a better position.
Yes.
Positioning. How can you slowly work yourself into a way where you can overcome the difficulties, right?
Absolutely right.
I view weight training the same way.
Yes.
If I'm under a heavy load, I'm questioning my entire life at the moment. But I also know if I don't give up and I stick to the things that I know that I'm good at, then I can overcome it. And I use that as my force in the rest of my life.
Yeah, man. Back when I was lifting heavy, that's how I was too.
Awesome.
So I said the first time I lifted, 315 on bench, I was like so scared, but I was like, fuck, dude. It's like, it's one of those days. It's like, I have to lift this, not just because of the weight, but because of what the weight represents. The same thing with deadlifting 500 and squatting 500, same thing, So absolutely, man.
That's cool. So you told me earlier that you were 400 pounds, and I want to congratulate you for cutting that shit off of you.
Appreciate that.
And representing yourself with the man that you are by having a fit body.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I'm still working on narrowing down my fitness just a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I still have a little bit of fat here and there, so I'm not at the perfect physique that I want to be at. But man, it's been such a journey. Right. From 400 to the lowest I ever got was, I believe it was like 250. Yeah, 250. And then I went back up to like 300, and then I cut down to 260. And then I've been teeter-tottering between like 250 to 270 to 80.
It's like a fluctuation, kind of like entrepreneurship, correct, right? You have good days, you have bad days, and you're slowly moving back and forth until you can get the pendulum centered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And right now I'm sitting at 270.
Okay.
270, yeah.
The stack 270. Over here making me feel small.
Man, you're jacked yourself, bro. So.
I appreciate that. It's when he came in, I found it it was very comforting to see another man that takes his appearance serious.
Yes.
Not only does he dress well, but he also cares about his body and the way that he presents himself. How important is that to you as a man to represent yourself and your image?
Man, I think that's super important for me specifically, because I never had that. When I grew up, I was that guy that, my mom picked my clothes for me, mm-hmm, right? I was always the kid that had no style. I just didn't really care, because I was just the fat kid. I was not popular. I was just a clown. But then as I got older, I started to realize how bad it really affected me, how I looked, because then I started to become the pick me, like not the pick me, but what's that word? It's like the where you become like the laughing stock. Is that I think that's the word,
the
right?
kid that gets picked on, right?
Yes, yeah. Exactly. So everybody would pick on me because of the way that I would look and just kind of how I dressed a lot of the time. So when I got older, I was like, I need to change. I need to have a new identity. Yep. So how I looked really changed the person that I was. Because also I used to have straight, slick back, long hair too, and that was a different person. So I had to change that identity as well too, because that person was also a different version of me that is not who I am today.
Right.
And I needed to kill that person, right? That's what suicide, sometimes like we have to have a suicide of character.
Absolutely.
And that's who I was before. I was that weak 400-pound man. And when I lost that weight, I needed to change who I was, because I related my character to that person that had the long hair, slick back. So that's when I decided to roll the natural curls, because my straight hair was not natural. I had chemical straightenings, and so I would straighten my hair. So now I'm like, dude, I'm this. I don't think I'm this new guy. I think this is who I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I'm always going to be ever changing. I'm always going to be evolving. But this is the person that I was supposed to be. This guy that has somewhat of a good sense of clothing. I mean, you can say whatever you want, but I think I can dress.
Yeah.
Most people give me compliments because of my outfits as well too. And then I'm also very clean. I really started to pay attention on my hygiene. I think you don't want to be around people that smell bad.
No.
Or people that just like don't take care of themselves because they don't shower, or they just don't really take care of their body, because that also tells you a lot about their character. Because if that's how they treat themselves, how are they going to treat you?
Absolutely. And that's something that I teach on. It's like, all right, so when you're going into a business meeting, if the person that you're looking across at and they're selling you, let's say on life insurance, how can you trust them to give you the best service when they're not even willing to take care of themselves? I mean, this is a dog-eat-dog world. Like,
absolutely.
People snitch each other out. People sell each other out. And it's all for their own benefit. But if they're not willing to take care of themselves and their health, how do you know that they're going to be able to take care of you and your best?
100%, man. 100%. That's the one thing I always tell people this is like, I'm so dedicated with my physique, with my fitness, with my health, that is, I always tell people is like, watch how I operate in every aspect of my life. Yep. That's how I'm going to operate in your financial aspect. That's why I have the best interest of everybody. Because in order to do infinite banking the right way, in order to use life insurance the right way, the financial professional has to put you above themselves too, right? They have to be very meticulous in how they do it. You can't just half-ass it. So when people are very like just careless about themselves, it's always like a red flag to me.
Amen. And I think that's something that people want to shame so they don't have to be accountable for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, like we said earlier, what are they leaving on the table? Like, there's all kinds of stuff. Like, you could eat better, you could drink better, but always it's an excuse. So what other excuses are showing up in their life, and how is that going to impact you?
100%. And especially if excuses, which, by the way, someone who's out of shape, somebody who's unhealthy, they have all the excuses. They tell themselves the excuses every day. So if you think about it, what other excuses are they going to tell you about how they handled your finances?
What? You lost all my money?
Exactly. They'll give you some excuse. Oh, it's the market, or, politics, Joe Biden, and all that stuff. It's like, no, you got to take accountability about yourself.
It's very interesting because the society that we live in right now is driven towards the lack of accountability.
1,000,000%.
And it's almost like we glorify victimhood.
Yes.
It's easier to point the finger of power, like Alex Hormozy says. It's the finger of power. The minute you blame somebody else is you give up your authority over yourself.
Wow, that's fire.
I
haven't seen that. I haven't seen anybody say that, but it's very powerful to say.
And and if we think about it, like, we look at how things are marketed to us, and it's almost like that's what they want, because then they get to make a choice for us. And whoever they is, it's the people who have authority.
1,000,000%. I think that's exactly how society has been tailored now. It's like everything that we eat, we drink, everything that we consume, that we watch, it's meant to make us docile. It's meant to make us malleable, to just move us around. And COVID, I think, was a great experiment is to see how what's it called? How controllable people are, you know?
Absolutely.
Because then it's like they've made experiments about this before. It's like you could look at something and you know it's the right thing. And then because everybody else is saying the wrong thing, you will eventually say the wrong thing, even though you know it's wrong. Mm-hmm. Because why? Because they've created this mob mentality that you just don't want to be the outcast. Yep. You know, I really don't care. I've been the outcast my entire life. That's why I have no problems, you know, separating
yourself from the pack.
Absolutely.
But if you look at it, there's religions that do the same thing. But ideally, we are pack animals.
Yes.
Us alone as an individual will go crazy.
Yes.
Like solitary confinement. That's a prime example. Anybody that gets put in solitary confinement, they end up going batshit crazy. Mm-hmm. So we desire the acceptance of the group, which is a proven why people would just willfully lay over when they know it's not the right thing to do.
Correct. But I think it also comes down to just having a little bit of spine and a little bit of backbone, right? Because yes, you're correct. We're creatures of our own environments. However, sometimes people are too afraid to be alone. Or sometimes people are too afraid to go against the grain. Sometimes isolation is a gift. Now, this is super important to understand because extended isolation, that's what drives people crazy. Right? Sometimes isolation in a controlled measure is good enough for you to see how much more you're able to do by yourself and how well you can think on your own. Otherwise, if your entire life you are surrounded by people that are influencing your opinions, as well as also you're scrolling to see what are your opinions, you never have your own opinion.
The ideals of social media. Now, what you just said takes me to something that I learned as a young Boy Scout. The Indians, the Native Americans, whatever label we want to put on them, they actually went out on vision quest.
Interesting.
And they would go out by themselves. They'd have to go out, hunt, and survive for a period of time, and then they would come back. Mm-hmm. And that's what was their right of manhood, the way I understand
Spartans used to do the same thing.
Right. And it talks about exactly what you just bring up, the ideal of this small isolation period to prove yourself that you are capable of doing something. Mm-hmm. And we've almost lost that now with the endless means of influence that we carry around. Mm-hmm. Before, we had a television, and that's the only time we got media telling us how to think. Now we all walk around with something in our hand that we're glued to.
That's why I think jiu-jitsu is so important for a lot of men. Regardless of your level of physicality, I mean, jiu-jitsu is going to kick your ass, like no matter what. You know, I can say I'm a pretty athletic guy, but jiu-jitsu's kicked my ass so many times. Just the sheer act of just going after it, you know. But I think jiu-jitsu is such a great sport because it teaches you how to be by yourself. I think a lot of sports, like team sports, are great, right? Like I used to play football, I used to play rugby, and it was great because I had that camaraderie and that team effort, right? However, if you get too used to relying on others, you almost become useless by yourself.
Yes.
So jiu-jitsu has taught me on self-reliance. Now, it doesn't mean that I want to be a lone wolf, but it means that if I am by myself, at least I have the determination and I have the grit to at least get something done by myself.
I think you also know exactly what you bring to the table then too, and you can be a better teammate in that moment because you are confident in the man that you are and the skills that you offer.
Yes, because I don't have to rely on anybody else.
It also gives you the opportunity to be complimented by somebody else that can do something that you don't do very well.
Exactly. And if I understand myself better, I can play in a team better.
Absolutely. That's pretty cool. So, what would you believe right now would be the goal that you want to accomplish for yourself?
Wow. So I have a lot of different goals, but I think right now my biggest focus has been, so my first competition in jiu-jitsu, I got 2 silvers in both categories, which a lot of people give me a lot of praise for because I only trained for like 3 months. You know, and I was like literally brand spanking new. So I want to pat myself in the shoulder for that. But my goal is I would like to take gold. Okay. You know, I want to take gold on both categories, gi and no gi, just to prove myself that I am I am that guy.
You are capable.
Yes, exactly. On top of that too, I've been training a lot. I've been doing this semi SEALs training, where it's like it's pretty much the same type of training pipeline that SEALs go to to become a SEAL. Probably not as extreme, obviously, but it is very similar as far as like intensity goes, like the type of PTs they do, training in cold water, a lot of the exercise that the SEALs go through. That's kind of what I'm doing right now with one of my buddies who went through BUD/S. So I'm trying to prove myself that I'm not just a guy who's just strong, that I can just lift weights, like heavy weights, and that I can also compete in jiu-jitsu. I want to see how much of a man I can be, like a dangerous man.
I think it's a really good point that you bring right there. Not only are you training in jiu-jitsu, strengthening those skills, but you're also doing other types of training to complement that. Correct. So you can be the most diverse.
Because I always think about this. If in any situation I needed to protect my own, right? Yes, I can shoot a gun. Yes, I can do jiu-jitsu. But would I be able to have the stamina and the strength to, for example, carry, my brother who just twisted his ankle and we have to like run away from whatever situation through Superstition Mountains, or if my mom falls overboard in the ocean, would I be able to just jump in there and like be able to rescue her because that water's freezing cold, things of that nature, where it's like in real life situations where most people would die. Yep. Would I be able to at least be above average to the point that I not only I could survive, but I could also save the people that I love?
Right.
Especially with how this country is going, like you never know what's going to happen.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's the true test right there. It's like you never know what's going to happen. So have you developed the skills to be able to handle any situation, which a lot of people live vicariously through the television or through social media, some bullshit, right?
Yep.
And then they have this false sense of security when in reality, like, you get face to face with that altercation, and then people break down and they quit.
Well, that's why in BUD/S they have like the first days when they throw everything at them, they call it like a gut check, right? Which is like, fuck, this is a lot harder than I thought. Like I might not be able to do this.
Reality check.
Yes, right? Because think about it. Most people, like you said, right? They live vicariously through the screen. They see David Goggins. They're like, oh, I could probably do that. In a real life scenario, my adrenaline would kick in and I could be. It's like, that's cool to say. But is that actually true?
Right. It makes me think of when guys are like, I wish there was a zombie apocalypse. I'd love to shoot them. No, the fuck you don't.
Yeah.
You don't want to deal with that.
No.
The whole world would shut down.
No
You wouldn't.
way.
Your toilet wouldn't flush, bro.
Absolutely. Or the people that say, oh, dude, like when I get into a fight, all I see is red and I just black out. It's like, come on, bro. It's like,
okay. and he probably does black out, but is he as effective as he could be if he could think?
Probably not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
And I think that relates to a lot of situations in life that people just go by the seat of their pants instead of holding themselves accountable, building skills, and being able to withstand the stress that's about to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
So what advice would you give to a man if he wanted to improve his life?
Jiu-jitsu, bro.
Jiu-jitsu. This dude's like, oh, you just better learn how to get strangled and strangle back.
No, honestly, okay, so I have a few tips. So the biggest thing is men nowadays have to take an inventory of their life. They have to figure out where they're at, And it takes a lot. It takes a lot of accountability. It takes a lot of humility because you have to sit down with yourself, separate from everything. You almost have to just put everything on pause for a second and sit in your room in complete darkness, no music, no nothing, no distractions. And it's not even about meditating, to be honest. It's what I had to do. I had to sit down by myself and I had to take an inventory of my life. Where am I at right now? Where do I want to go? Am I actually going that way? And if I'm not, how can I? What are the things that are actually stopping me? I was 400 pounds. Okay, I'm fat as fuck. I can't walk. I can't run. I can barely breathe. I can't even see when I pee. So that that fucking hurt, bro.
Yeah.
That hurt a lot. So I had to really realize, it's like, okay, the number one thing that's stopping my growth right now, the number one thing that's actually like making me want to kill myself is the fact that I'm 400 fucking pounds. Yep. I have to make a change. And I found that out when one day I got out of the shower, and before I put my robe on, I looked at myself and I was disgusted. It's like I could grab my belly and it was heavy. And then that same day, after I put my clothes on, I crouched down to tie my shoes. As soon as I got up, I got lightheaded and I started panting.
Oh, shit.
So at that point, I was like, okay, I have to change. I have to change because I will not live past 40. At this rate, I first of all, that's if I don't kill myself. I won't live past 40, right? So that day, and it was crazy because it was the same day that it was Christmas Day of 2017. And I have a picture of it because it was all of that stuff happened, right? I saw myself in the mirror. I crouched down to tie my shoes. I couldn't breathe. And I got lightheaded. And then they took a picture of me and my mom at the church I went to for Christmas service. And I looked at that picture. I was hiding behind the sign that says Christmas 2017. And I was still so fucking fat. And I looked at myself. I was like, how is that me? It's like, I can't believe this is me.
Shit. That
day, it just like completely changed my entire reality. And 11 months after that, I lost 120 pounds. And what I had to really commit, bro.
Right.
There's a thing, because I'm an ex-addict as well, too. I'm an ex-cocaine addict and a sex addict in recovery. And they always say this in AA meetings. They say, the pain of the reward one day will not be worth the reward. And what that means is that the pain of you getting the reward of the hit, right?
The instant gratification.
Exactly. That's a reward to your addict mind, but there's a pain associated. One day, the pain of the reward will not be, will be enough. Like you will not want that pain anymore. Yep. And you will make that change. And it will force you to do so. Yep.
Sometimes the way I put it is like when people deny the help or they don't want to go to the gym, they don't want the services that I offer. I'm like, well, maybe you just haven't suffered enough yet.
Yeah. Dude, it's people look at us. The people that like, cause I can kind of tell that you're a little intense, kind of just like how I am.
Yeah.
You know, I try not to sugarcoat things because it's pretty cut and dry. You know, like, you know what you have to do.
Yeah.
You know, and that goes for everything. Whether you're struggling with money, whether you're struggling with weight, whether you're struggling with whatever it is, relationships, you know what you have to do. At the core center of yourself, you know what you have to do. And if you've been doing what you know you have to do, that just means that you're just early in the process to see any results, which means that you have to continue to do it. Consistency until you see the result. What happens is, and I struggle with this with some of my friends too, that want more money or just want to change how they look. They stick with something for 30 days and then they quit. And they think that in 30 days, things should change. That's not how it works.
Unfortunately, we live in that society of instant gratification.
Like imagine you're dating someone and you have to make a decision if you're going to marry that person in 30 days. Like, how does that make any sense? You cannot choose. You cannot decide. I mean, you shouldn't decide if you're supposed to marry that person in 30 days. You just don't have enough data. You haven't experienced enough with that person. Yep. The same thing goes with the gym, with your career. Like, it took me 3 years to make my biggest pop. My biggest deal that I ever closed. I made $146,000 of it. But it took me 3 years to get to that point. To get to the point that I closed one deal that paid me $146,000. And now people try to come to me and say they want to work with me. They want to do all this stuff. I give them some tasks to do, which is what I had to do 3 years ago. The only difference is that I have the experience now that I can shorten that time from 3 years to maybe a few months.
Right.
And after 30 days, they quit because they didn't see no fucking progress.
But once again, let's go back to what we said earlier. Let's look at the other things they did in their life, and I guarantee you that's showing
pattern.
up again.
It's a fucking pattern.
Yep.
People follow we are creatures of pattern. And I have my patterns. I'm sure you have your patterns.
Of course.
And we're not perfect. The thing is you don't have to be a perfect being. You just have to always strive to be better than you were yesterday.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? That's the problem, is that people think that, oh, well, I can't fix this because, first of all, because I haven't done it enough. But let's just say, for example, that's the pattern, right? I can't fix it because I've always been that person. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you have to be that person forever. Right. It just means that you got to try to fix what you have. That's it. Fix that issue. You got to fix that issue. And look, man, people can try to make some excuses, for example, oh, you know, my dad wasn't in the picture, I got scammed, I got this, I'm a minority, immigrant, whatever, dude.
Right back to
I'm an immigrant myself. I'm half Middle Eastern, so my whole family and my mom suffered from all that minority racism stuff. My dad was not also in the picture as well too. So I grew up with money, and then my dad kind of rug pulled us and kind of just left us with nothing. So I came to this country with literally nothing. So the thing is we can put excuses, because I could have made excuses, and I made those excuses for the longest time, that I said, look, the reason why I'm not where I want to be is because my dad fucked us up. You know, my dad stole all my money from my college fund that my mom prepared for us, and I had $40,000 that I should have used for college, and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't until one of my ex-girlfriends, you know, which was one of the hardest breakups that I ever had. Shout out Beatrice, if you're watching this, which I don't know, I hope you're not, but whatever.
This one's for you, Beatrice.
She one time, she said, I was sitting down in the car and I was being a bitch. I was just crying about my fucking dad, dude. And she fucking grabbed my face and she was like, when are you going to stop fucking using your dad as a crutch of why you can't do the things that you want to do? It's when is that excuse going to run out? That was so painful for me to hear from my girlfriend, but she was right. Yep. She was right. I needed somebody to fucking smack me across the face and be like, your dad was a piece of shit. Yes. Did it fuck you up? Yes. But it doesn't fucking matter, because it is your responsibility to go do what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, all these problems that people are having, all these excuses, they shouldn't be an excuse. This should be a reason why they should do the thing that they need to do.
Oh my God, imagine that. Not the reasons why I can't, but the reasons why I should.
Exactly.
Bam.
Exactly.
You know, and I think it goes right back to what we've been talking about over and over. It's the accountability and looking at what's on the table and what is your responsibility. And what is you and what is your ability to change? If there's something out there right now that you would tell a man what he needs to get up and do right now in a simple one sentence, what would it be?
Wow.
He's thinking.
I am thinking.
This is a good one. I can wait to see it. I can see his gears turning.
If I had to tell a man what to do, just one thing, I would have to say that the relationship that you have with yourself has to come from something bigger than yourself. And I'll tell you why. For me, that bigger than myself is Christ. I'm not afraid to declare my faith. And that's the one thing that has completely changed my life. If you do not worship God, you worship yourself, or some other entity, higher power, whatever. If you don't have something else that's separate from you, that you can recognize that you are this imperfect being, that you have the opportunity to live in this imperfect world. And the only reason why you're here is because of this perfect superpower called God. Once you realize that you're so insignificant yet so valuable to this God, and you realize that everything that's happening is because this God is guiding you to it. And you're choosing by not worshiping this God, or by not even worshiping. I think maybe sometimes people think that word is wrong. But by not having this relationship with God, this free parent, right? You're choosing to worship yourself. That's why I've heard a lot of people talk about, oh, we are gods because we have the divine in ourselves. It's like, look, I am not God, nowhere near it. I am this imperfect being. Honestly, and sometimes I feel like I'm a mistake, but because of my mistakes and my flaws, I am the one for God. So the number one thing that I would tell people is to find purpose, or to find the being that's beyond you, something that's bigger than yourself. Because if you rely on yourself, now you're operating out of ego.
Ooh.
And if you're operating out of ego, you know what ego stands for?
Tell me.
Earth guide only.
Okay.
You're only being guided by the things of this earth. And when we understand that we're spiritual beings in an earthly experience, you start to realize that God stands for guided on divinity.
Okay. I like it.
So
that's the first time I've ever heard it put like that. And I think it's a very good way to put it. It removes all these labels that we've created to divide ourselves and puts us all in a spot together. When I look at God and my role in this existence, it's my judgment towards the actions that I take to represent my God and to help other people. And that's my mission, my purpose on this planet, is to give people like you a voice, to be able to put people up and show an example of what we can be. And I want to thank everyone out there for watching the Man Up and Own It podcast, where we send messages just like this so you can understand how you can be better in your life, and so you can be a better example, not only just for your family, but also your communities, and get what you want out of it. I appreciate you, and I'm thankful to have my man Wulf
thank you so much
on this podcast.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night, y'all.